Okay, this is a really hard episode to introduce, so you're just going to have to listen to find out what it's about. We talk about some really interesting things, tell some funny stories, and it actually gets serious in a couple places, but mostly it's lighthearted and funny. I hope you enjoy this episode with me hanging out with Raul and Don. We had a great time, and I hope you will too listening to it. This lady, she was nuts at Costco. So this lady, dude, so I'm at Costco and I'm trying to get water, right? Because there's a water shortage because of this crazy coronavirus that everybody's freaking out about.
I think I might have it ever since I got back from China.
So I buy 4 cases of water. The sign says you can only get 3, but I thought, I'm going to try to get 4. So I go to the front and the guy says, listen, bud, you can only get 3, the sign. I was like, oh, whatever, you can keep 1. Lady in front of me wasn't getting water, right? She says, why are you guys so busy? Because it had just opened. And I said, oh, the coronavirus, everybody's buying water and stuff. That's crazy. That's some nonsense. I think I had it last week. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this lady's off her rocker. And then she says, I said, ma'am, if I give you $5, will you buy this case of water for me? What do you want? I was like, oh, never mind. She's like, no, I'll do it. And it's like, how did she not get it and then all of a sudden get it? And she said, oh, I work at Safeway. I was like, oh, okay, so yes.
What does Safeway have to do with buying a deal of water?
So she's giving me this random information.
I work at Safeway.
Was this lady a blonde?
I drive a John Deere.
She's an older lady. And then the cashier asked her, hey.
My license plate is
I'll just put it on a separate receipt for him. And she goes, no, just put it on mine. Because at Costco, they check your receipts on the way out. So the cashier's thinking, oh, I'll get this guy a separate receipt so he can leave. And I thought, that's okay. And then she puts it on her receipt. I give her the $5. And I said, we're going to have to walk out together. And now she's wondering why I want to walk out with her.
Stalking a 70-year-old woman.
Like no, because you put it on your receipt. They're going to check our receipts on the way out. And then she finally got it. Oh, all right. Yeah, people are stupid. And she's telling me about these stupid people and the coronavirus, telling the whole walk out of Costco.
She's the one that was like, couldn't figure it out. I can't figure out why do you have to walk out with me? But everybody else is stupid.
Yeah. She was something else.
What is the worst? So you were talking about crime. What is the worst crime that you have been connected to?
I have to think about that.
So while you're thinking, I just sat on a murder trial. So I was on a basically 4-week jury, and we were trying a guy, 24 years old, 2 years ago. He was in the county jail and committed first-degree murder in front of the video cameras. They knew they were there. They didn't care.
They being the perpetrators.
Yes, being the perpetrators. They being the guy that we were trying. So he...
he identified as they?
Yes, he identified... No, not exactly. But good point.
I saw a pickup. I'm sorry. I saw a pickup, and it is lifted Chevy pickup, big old swamper tires on it, and it says, I identify as a Prius.
I actually took that picture. Did you know that? Yeah, the one that got sent to Pastor Green. I actually sent that picture to him. That was taken.
I saw this vehicle.
Oh, I saw it too. There's one in Merced.
Maybe I was in Merced. I don't know.
It might be the big white truck.
No, it was gray.
Oh, this one was a white truck. So we've probably seen 2 vehicles that looked or said the same thing. Pretty awesome though. Yeah. Anyway, so this guy he committed this first-degree murder right in front of the camera, and then turned right around. And actually tried to, so there was 3 counts: first-degree murder, attempted murder, and assault with a deadly weapon. So we convicted him of first-degree murder, did not convict him of attempted murder, and then did convict him of assault with a deadly weapon. With the assault with a deadly weapon, they stabbed the guy over 30 times, and he lived.
He lived. Wow.
Stabbed him in the head, stabbed him in the neck, took his ear off, literally about half of his ear. The abrasions on his head was unbelievable. His whole arm was just completely covered in cuts. And the shank, this guy had 2 shanks in his hand. One was cut off of a metal bunk. It was 8 inches long, sharpened to a point, wrapped in a bed sheet for a handle.
Yeah, for a handle.
And then the other was a cut off. They had somehow found and broken a piece off of the stainless steel table. They had rolled it into a fine point that was 10 inches long.
What's the deal? Because these guys not afford like a knife or something?
No,
They can't get them in. They're in jail.
Oh, so
Couldn't get
this
it
happened
in.
prison.
This
Yeah.
happened in the county jail.
They're MacGyvers. You're there all day, all night, so they use anything. I was in one prison, working, not in prison, but
He was in prison. Oh,
They,
when were you? Oh, wow.
they said the guys got on each other's shoulders like a cheerleading squad, shoulder on shoulder on shoulder on shoulder, and they took apart the ceiling to get some of the lashing out. And then they got some of the lashing and made knives out of
Okay,
it.
so the first degree murder, how they killed that guy was they strangled him. And the way they strangled him is they took bed sheets that were about 1 inch. They cut strips of bed sheet that were about 1 inch long. And I'm sorry, not 1 inch long, about 18 inches long, but 1 inch wide. And they
made a ligature.
They made a ligature by braiding it and turning it into a full rope. So the rope was probably, I don't know, maybe a half an inch thick. And then they put
a lot of thought into this.
That's exactly it. And then they put handles on the sides, at the ends of the rope. And then when the guy went, they just wrapped it around him, took him out. Yeah.
Handles on the end of the rope. That sounds like go ahead.
The mind of a criminal, they think real detailed like that. I worked with a guy, and he was in prison, a big black dude, okay? And he would tell us about these weapons that you just described, and he's literally, I don't want to get graphic or anything, but he said that they would poop.
Yeah, don't get graphic.
Yeah.
They would poop on the blades so that they would be infected. That's how much thought. He told me that, and I was
I told somebody on the jury, I said, if they would put as much time, they're brilliant. They truly are brilliant. If they would put as much time into doing something productive as they do in doing something unproductive, these guys would be multimillionaires because they're unbelievably genius.
The proof is in the pudding with Frank Abagnale, which is that he was 16 or 17
One of my
years
favorites.
old, and he started committing these crimes with fraud and writing bad checks. And
Catch Me If You Can. If you've ever read the book or heard about the book, Catch Me If You Can. You ever heard about this book?
I've heard about it.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's one of the best books I've ever read.
It's great. It's a great story. He has a new book called Scam Me If You Can, where he talks about how he spent the rest of his life, working for law enforcement, and he talks about the countermeasures he made in this second book called Scam Me If You Can, because now identity theft is very prevalent, right? And he talks about what he does, his work with the FBI to prevent identity theft.
So Frank Abagnale, basically as a 16-year-old, I may have some of the timing.
He's a teenager.
He was a teenager. He started passing hot checks. He looked a lot older than 16.
Right.
A lot of people thought he was like 22. So he starts passing hot checks. This is back in the 70s, 60s or 70s.
Yeah, but remember, in the very beginning, he's trying to do these checks, but he couldn't get them cashed. And then he saw a guy in an airline pilot uniform, and he saw that the bank teller didn't even check his ID. They saw him, and they just cashed his check right away. He thought, I wonder if I can get one of those.
And this is before electronic, before they would check your checks electronically or anything like that.
And this guy's only 16 at the time?
At the time,
Yeah,
yes.
so he steals a pilot jacket and hat. And then, so he was wearing a pilot jacket and hat and goes to cash a check, and they immediately cash it without checking his ID. And that was the start of him impersonating a pilot.
So he impersonated a pilot. He literally ended up flying. I believe it was TWA, but he would walk on. He bought a full pilot's deal. He would hang out in the pilot's lounge and pick up the kind of lingo that they would say and the things they would talk about. That he would walk on, and they were called. Was it deadheading? So something like that. Basically, he found a way that the cockpits have a jump seat in them. And if you're like an American Airlines pilot and there's a flight on TWA, you can, I think they call it deadheading, where you can get on there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but you can.
Two things. One, how he figures out about pilots, because he's only 16 or 17 at this time. So he gets in his regular clothes. When he's not in a uniform, he looks much younger. So then he says, I'm a high school student. I'm just studying about pilots. And he goes and interviews a pilot under the guise of doing it for school and learns all the lingo and the radio traffic and what knobs turn up and how you spin up one engine to build up the pressure to spin up the other engine.
And this is all just so he can cash checks?
This is also he could cash checks.
Now,
So he doesn't want to be.
Oh wait,
He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be caught
caught
the odd guy out because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he wants to continue impersonating because he's getting really good at writing these checks. He's taken the logo off of toys. He gets these toys and soaks them in water.
This is crazy. Is
And
this
then
a true story?
model airplanes. Yes, yes.
Okay, model airplanes.
Yes,
he
true
soaks them in
story.
water and then
Takes the logo.
He peels the logo off of it and then puts it on the check and puts the checks in books to dry. And then once the books dry perfectly flat inside the books, he goes and cashes them. And then what he's talking about is when the first time he goes to fly.
Yes.
And then this is when you walked right up to the gate, and then you pay for your ticket right then at the gate. He walks up, and then the lady just says, "Are you flying or riding?" And he's like, "What do you mean? Are you riding a jump seat today?" He's like, I'm just here to buy a ticket." Yeah, I'm riding a jump seat. And so he just figures it out and plays along. They let him get on the airplane. He rides in what's called the jump seat, which is like a backup pilot seat for when the pilot's fatigued or the co-pilot. They can swap out with the dude riding in the jump seat.
And flies across the ocean.
And this is very common practice because pilots are in high demand at this time. And they still are. But they would just hitch rides to get to where they need to go. And by the way, anybody that works at an airport that works for an airline, a lot of them have that privilege of being able to just hop on a plane.
You can hop on any carrier.
Even airplane mechanics.
Yes.
I met an airplane mechanic who worked in Sacramento. He lived in Reno. He flew to work every day.
Really?
You just jump on a flight. You just say, I need a seat. And basically they make you wait till the end, but they'll have a seat for you. So he starts flying.
Well, there's always extra seats.
That's right. So
this first time that he flies, he's a co-pilot.
He flies.
No. Well, no.
There's pilot, co-pilot, and then
and
jump
then
seat
a jump
pilot.
seat. So there's like 3 seats in the cockpit, and he's sitting in that third seat, just flying. And then at some point, after he's done this several times, the guy says, "Hey, would you like to take the controls?"
Okay, so now at this point,
And
now he's at the
he
controls.
takes the controls and flies, and he's like 17 years old. So he ends up flying all over the world, and he does this for like a year.
I don't know the time.
I think it was a year, and he realizes, but he's flying, and he's getting a paycheck. Now he's getting these checks, supposedly not a paycheck, but he's cashing checks as if he's an airline pilot. He's got uniforms, he's got access to all security places, all of that, just like a regular pilot would. He flies all over the world, and then he realizes he's about to get caught.
Well, So when they're flying one day, the pilot leans over and asks him. He's like, "Hey, man, the tower's asking for your pilot ID card." And he's like, "Can you show it to me?" He's like, well, it's in my bag and I checked my bag." "All right, I'll just tell him you checked your bag with your ID." "Okay, it's fine." So he realizes, oh my goodness, I need one of those pilot IDs. So he was actually flipping through the flight, it's like this, it was a brochure for pilots. And in the brochure, it had like this plaque where you could give them your flight number, your pilot ID number, and then they would make a plaque. So he calls them up and makes up a pilot ID number and gets a plaque made. He then takes that plaque into Kinko's or Office Max or something like that and says, "Hey, I'm a pilot, and this is my pilot ID here on this fancy plaque here." The plaque looks very official. Listen, he gets the plaque made first, and then he goes to Kinko's or whatever and has to make an ID.
So is this guy really brilliant, or is he just overconfident?
Oh wait, no, he's
just the way he
brilliant.
carries
In the
He's
interview
brilliant.
I listened to an hour and a half long interview, and he says, "I wasn't confident. I think I was more ignorant because I wasn't afraid of getting caught because I was so young. I think if I was any older, I would not have done it because I would have thought about it more, and then I would have thought, oh, I can't do that. I'll get caught." But because he was so young and airheaded and didn't think about the consequences, that's why he kept going further and further.
But he has to have a brilliant mind.
Absolutely.
When you hear all the things that he did, so it gets better. So when he realizes he's going to get caught, he decides he flies to Atlanta, gets to Atlanta somehow, and decides he's going to change his persona. So instead of being an airline pilot, now he's going to change to something else. So by this time, the guy's a millionaire because he's been cashing all these bad checks. So he decides he moves into this gated villa somewhere in Florida. And when he gets down there and he's moved in, one day one of his neighbors walks by and wants to know what he does. And he has no, like, what does he do? He can't say, well, I write bad checks. So
he doesn't want to say he's a pilot anymore because he wants to start doing something else.
So he says, I'm a pediatrician. I think that's what he says. I'm a pediatrician. I'm a doctor.
So was this guy just a compulsive liar? Or
he had to be. He had to be.
I mean, he comes. I've known compulsive liars, and they just
he's unbelievable.
So fast.
The guy. That's where I say he has to be brilliant. I don't know that he's a compulsive liar as much as he's just brilliant. But he says I'm a pediatrician. I'm a doctor. Well, when he says that, the guy says, "Oh, really? I'm a doctor too." And I'm actually one of the head guys at the Atlanta Children's Hospital.
And they need a lead doctor.
And we need a lead doctor. Would you mind coming in? And he's like, well, I don't know. He's like, just come in and you can
read this book.
And
this
you can
really interesting.
You can oversee the interns basically.
Yeah.
So he goes there. I'm really cutting a lot out of the story.
Yeah.
But he would go into surgery. He has no clue what he's doing, but he would say he'd tell the interns, hey, now come over. I want, the interns that had been at it for a little while that were pretty close to getting their doctorate, he'd say, you come over here. I want you to do this. I'm going to just oversee you.
Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah, exactly. They were asking him questions.
Testing their knowledge.
And that's exactly it.
He was trying to do the same thing.
Let's see it in practice type of thing.
That's it.
He tried to do the same thing he did before, which is study about it, but he realized it was way more complicated than being a pilot, and he knew he couldn't fake it. So he only impersonated a doctor for 2 weeks, and then he thought, I got to get out of here.
Yes.
And he bounced.
Yeah, so he does that, but he did.
But now he's forced to impersonate a pilot again to get out of there.
Yeah, so he impersonates his pilot, and then it gets better because he decides he goes somewhere else, and
falls in love with an 18-year-old girl, and then her father is the owner of his own law firm. And so
this is like Delilah.
He tells the girl that he's in love with that he's an attorney. And she's like, well, my dad owns a law firm.
So get this. The guy...
And he needs help.
So the guy...
Are we talking about my little brother here?
He takes the bar exam and passes it. No schooling.
You're kidding me.
No.
Passes the bar.
Passes the bar.
For law.
For law.
Yeah.
And becomes a lawyer. And he does that for a little while. Finally, long story short, I may be missing something important. I can't remember, but
he impersonates an FBI agent because he had all this money, right? And he'd fly around wherever he wanted because he's impersonating a pilot. And he met this one girl. He wrote her phone number on the back of a check because he asked her for her phone number. He wrote it on the back of the check, and they hung out and they dated or whatever for the couple days it was. And then he took that same check and used it at a bank. He forgot he wrote her number on it. And then so he filled it out, an amount, and went and had it cashed. And then he thought, oh no, if they're looking into me, they're going to look into all my checks.
So he realizes his mistake.
And they're going to see her phone number on the back. They're going to call it and say, hey, did you meet a guy recently? She's going to say, yeah, he's a young guy, blonde hair, this and that. And they're going to find him. So he knows this. So he decides to go to that bank. And he doesn't know quite what he's going to do.
I've got to read this book.
He gets to the doors and he's like, I'm going to pretend to be an FBI agent. Okay, he goes in. He's like, hi, my name's Frank with the FBI. I understand you have a fraudulent check and I'm just here to pick it up. Oh, we do have a fraudulent check. He's, yeah, I'm with the FBI. Go ahead and make a copy of the front of it for your records and I'll sign it saying I took it and then I'll take the check. You can keep the copy of the front of it. And he specifies the front of it twice. So they copy the front of it, give him the check. He walks out of there with the check, having successfully impersonated an FBI agent.
And taken the evidence that they needed to get in.
Behind, yeah.
Okay, I know I've already asked this question like once or at least twice. But this is a true story, right?
This is 100% true.
Story.
And then this is the craziest part of the story. He tells us in an interview. So in the interview, they ask him about this time because they made a movie about his book. So he says, the gentleman giving the interview asked him, he's like, hey, there's a scene in the movie where the Secret Service, the FBI finds him in a motel room. They go into his motel room, but Frank is in the bathroom. And he says, hey, FBI. So Frank comes out of the bathroom. He says, oh, well, it's about time he got here. I'm with the Secret Service. He's already gone. And he says, what are you talking about? I'm with the Secret Service. And this guy's wanted for money laundering, and we can't find him. He's not here, apparently. And you're here. You must have scared him off. And the FBI agent is just thinking, what? I missed him? I thought for sure he was here. He's like, nope, sorry, man. Looks like you missed him. Well, I'm out of here. And he walks out.
So this is
He was in the bathroom.
Somebody.
He happened to have a suit on, and he comes out of the bathroom and says, hey, I'm Secret Service. I'm not Frank Abagnale, you crazy person. No, I'm Secret Service. And the FBI agent believed him.
This guy must have gone
and
straight out of Hollywood.
let him go out.
He's unbelievable.
So this is so unbelievable. The guy giving the interview asked him, he's like, that can't be true. Frank says, check this out. I'll tell you how it's so true. The movie director, whatever, wrote that scene out. And then he got the notes from the FBI agent, like their detective notes where they log what happened. He says the director read the story about how Frank was in the restroom, came out, says, no, I'm with Secret Service. And he just wrote the movie script based off verbatim what
the report that the
script
FBI
was.
had. Yeah.
So the movie script was actually word for word what actually happened in the FBI agent's report.
So he goes, long story short, he ends up getting caught in Paris because he flees to France. And he ends up getting caught there, and he spends 2 years.
They
put him in jail.
He was wanted all over the world because he would fly. When he would fly, he would not just pass checks in America. He'd go over there and pass checks. So he'd cross to Europe, cross to America, cross wherever, and he'd be passing bad checks the whole time. So he goes to Europe, and
so the reason he was able to pass checks, real quick, it's a little technical, but on your check, there's an account number and there's a routing number. And what he would do is it's a completely false account number. But the routing number was either 01, 02, 03, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up to 12. And 12 is over in New York. 01 is Hawaii. So it goes in order from left to right what bank it belongs to. Okay. So he would write them for 01. So they would go to Hawaii. So, so to get verified, the check would just say, oh, my routing number is 01. They send it to Hawaii. When Hawaii got it, they said, this is a fraudulent check. But it would take forever for it to get mailed to Hawaii to get checked.
That was back before electronic type stuff. So it was all by mail. So they were taking these and mailing them to Hawaii. He would look at it.
So he figured out this routing thing by going to, he asked to tell her, hey, what are these numbers on the bottom? Just an account and routing number. They didn't really know what they were. So he went to the library and looked it up and then figured out it's by region. And then he figured out the region for Hawaii and started sending checks there by changing the routing number to the Hawaii number.
This
brilliant.
guy,
he's brilliant.
Does he read?
The next thing he does is deposit slips. So deposit slips, you know how you get those deposit slips? You can write in your account information.
I mean, this is the first time I've heard about.
I don't know that
deposit slips. You pick up these blank deposit slips, right? You write your account number in on it, and then you give it to the teller. They put it in the computer. The computer scans the deposit slip and deposits your money. What he did is he got some deposit slips, and there's micro printing on the deposit slips that the computer reads. If the computer reads micro printing and there's an account number present in the micro print, it will ignore the handwritten print and obey the microprint and deposit the money to the microprinted account. So he microprinted his account number on a stack of deposit slips, put them in the center of the bank for people to pick up. People would come in to put a deposit in. No matter what they wrote for the account number, the machine read the microprint, ignored the handwritten account number, and deposited all the money into his account. Everybody that went into that bank branch got their money deposited to his account.
There again, so this was back in the 60s and 70s.
He figured out microprinting and routing numbers from research.
That's why when you asked if he was a compulsive liar, possibly. But the guy was just brilliant. He was just brilliant. And not just brilliant, but he was willing to put the time in to do the research to be a good con guy. Wow. So he gets caught.
Well, he was naturally intelligent. The sign of natural intelligence is being curious about everything. So he was curious about the routing numbers. Then he was curious about microprint. So he just looked it up. Once he realized what it was, then the criminal aspect came in.
So he gets caught by European officials. And he spends a year and a half, 2 years. I can't remember how long. He's in jail in France, and he says that was the worst. Like it was solitary confinement at one point. The prisons were nasty, and
there's rats. They don't get rid of the rats. They feed you one time a day, and your toilet is a hole in the ground. And here we have what's called the special housing unit, which is close to that, but you still get 3 meals a day, and an hour outside of the shoe. In France, they believe if you commit a crime and you go to jail, you are being punished from the moment you arrive till you leave. And people get sick from the rats and from the feces and being unclean. They get infections and they die. But Frank says this, so I don't know how accurate it is. I didn't look it up. He says the recidivism rate in France is something like 3%, whereas here it's something like 70%.
Because people just don't want to go back to prison.
They never want to go back. They think, if I go to jail, I'm going to die. I'm not going to commit a crime.
So that was basically how he felt. I mean, while he's over there,
he was dying.
Prison,
so while
he was dying,
I think it was while he's there
is
when the Secret Service or FBI.
Yeah.
So was this guy American then?
Yes. Yeah, he was born and raised in New York, I believe.
Yeah, I think they extradited him.
Yeah, so they extradite him back to the U.S.
because he's American.
And he ends up standing trial, and he gets something
he
like...
serves 5...
He gets 10 or 12 years.
He gets sentenced, whatever, but he gets out after just a couple years because he talks to the FBI agent and agrees to consult to the FBI.
Okay, so he gets put in prison.
What do you mean by consult?
He gets put in prison, and while he's in prison, the FBI come to him, and they're like, basically, you're the greatest con man we've ever been up against. Teach us what you were doing,
They didn't know about the microprinting. So he confessed to a crime they didn't even know about yet. Yeah. They didn't know he was having other people's money deposited to his accounts. They knew about the fraudulent checks, of course, but they didn't know about the fraudulent deposits.
Yeah, so he basically started teaching the FBI. And the FBI said, look, you're in for, I want to say it was like 12 years. You're supposed to be in this federal prison. But instead of being in that federal prison, we'll let you out after it was like...
It was between 1 and 5 years.
It wasn't very long. We'll let you out, but the only thing is you have to come work for us.
Yeah. And he talks about some of the things
This is amazing.
In the interview I listened to in this new book, Scam. I sound like I'm plugging his book. I'm a legitimate fan, not being paid. But he wrote a book called Scam Me If You Can. He talks about a time when they were consulting him on ATM machines.
No, this is later in his life.
This is later. Right. So he's out, he's helping, he's consulting.
He worked for the FBI for over 30 years.
Yeah, and that's what this second book is about.
Oh, okay.
In fact, does he still work for the FBI?
No, I think he just
retired.
He's retired. Yeah. But his book, what did I keep saying it?
Scam Me If You Can.
Scam Me If You Can. He talks about this ATM machine. So this company, this bank, I think he says the name of the bank, but the bank comes in and says, we got this brand new ATM machine and it's foolproof. We had top of the line guys design this. What do you think? They show him a picture of it. He looks at the picture and says, yeah, no, I can fool it. And they're like, yeah, right, dude. He's
never even seen it in person.
All this money
He's just looking at a picture.
He said, and Frank says, well, do you have any of these in use? Well, yeah, we do down here. Let's go. So they go to the place where this machine is. Wow. He takes some glue, some super glue, and it has a rolling door. When ATMs used to have these doors that kind of rolled open and rolled shut. And they had this little drawer. The money would drop into this little bin like a vending machine. When you get candy, the candy drops down, and then you push through the door, grab the candy. What he does is super glues the door shut. People go, swipe their card to get money out. They put in their PIN number. The machine clicks. The door doesn't open. No money comes out. He lets 2 or 3 people do this. He walks up to the machine, takes a knife, cuts the glue, forces the door open, and grabs all their cash. Says, there you go. This is why your machine won't work.
Simple, but still
brilliant.
Still
he figured that out from a picture.
By just looking at the picture, that's his mind was just set. It
He's like, I can glue that door shut.
How that machine works.
He's like, money's going to drop in there. How am I going to stop that from getting money out? He figured out he was going to glue it shut and then pop it open afterward. So that's why ATMs to this day, they all feed your money out. A door opens and money is fed out to you. It doesn't go into a little bin.
All because of him. Wow. All because of the book is, and there again, we're not getting any profit out of this, but it is probably in my top 3 books that are just most phenomenal books I've ever read.
As you guys are telling me this story, I was thinking about Roy Benavidez, which is a Medal of Honor recipient, and I believe it was Ronald Reagan that presented the medal to him, and he describes what he got the medal for.
I remember you telling me about this.
And so he as he reads the description of why he got presented the medal, he finished. Reagan says this. He says, if your life was a movie, I would not believe it. Like all the things he would. At one point, he's carrying his guts.
Oh, wow.
Hand combat.
Yes, there's a helicopter. He's trying to escape.
I mean, he's doing amazing things. And so, anyways, Reagan says, if they made a movie of your life, I just plain wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And so you guys are telling me this story, and it just kind of reminds me of that of that guy.
Yep, it
And
really
I'm just
is.
like,
It's,
if that was a movie, I just would not believe it. You know.
Have you finished A Higher Call yet?
I have not.
Oh my! Have you read A Higher Call?
I have.
Oh my goodness! It is.
I'm about 2/3 of the way through it.
What?
But this trial has consumed me for the last month.
Okay. Well, you need to finish it so we can talk about it.
Okay.
Have you? What have you read? What's the last thing you remember?
I don't remember.
Don't know. Oh yeah, I get
it's
that
one
way
Oh,
of those-
too. I
Do
get.
you remember what you told me when you?
Yeah, I do remember what I told you because you were telling me about Lone
He
Survivor.
me this book, okay? And he asks me a question, and I don't want to ruin it for you, so I'll just stop where he stopped, and it didn't ruin the book for me. But you have a more brilliant mind, so you probably figure it out anyways. But
Yeah, second grade was
you
the best
asked
3
me,
years of my
brother,
life.
ask me that same question you asked me before.
I said, Raul, we were talking about Lone Survivor, right? And it talks about these soldiers, these Navy SEALs. There's a group of about 6 of them. They come across these farmers. They're on a covert mission, and then they say, "Should we kill these goat farmers or should we let them go?" And then
I stop and
they
and I
argue
asked my
about it
little
for a while.
16-year-old brother.
Their mission was to kill everybody that discovered them because they could compromise their mission. So their orders were to kill everybody. They said, "Should we disobey our orders and let these guys live because we think they're just goat farmers? We don't think they're with the Taliban." Well, a lot of complicated stuff happens. I think they draw straws at some point, and then the team leader finally acquiesces and says, "Okay, we can disobey orders, and we can go ahead and let these goat farmers go." Well, the goat farmers were Taliban informants. And so all of a sudden, a couple hundred Taliban start running up with AKs, shooting at these 5 or 6 Navy SEALs. And it's a very sad story because 5 of the Navy SEALs die, and there's one lone survivor. And what was his name? Marcus Luttrell?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, and I want to say it was
Raul told me,
right?
he said, those guys were so stupid. They had the enemy in their crosshairs and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And I said, I want you to remember that. In fact, I took down his words and I texted them to him, his
he asked
exact
me what would
words.
he asked me what I would have done, and I said clearly, slit this guy's throat and
I
throw him over the hill.
I am
And I asked my little
100%
brother,
convinced. Before you have an opinion about war and battle, you need to read The Lone Survivor. And then as soon as you're done reading that book, you need to read A Higher Call.
Right.
And once you read those 2 books, you will be at a stalemate. You won't
your
know.
perspective. I totally agree. There's a balance in both of them, even though I've only read 2/3 of Higher Call.
They are
There's
the
a
exact
balance.
extreme of it. They are the
Yes.
exact antithesis of each other.
I agree.
Not only that, but when you asked me, I kind of I answered quickly, and then I diverted the question to my brother, which was a 16-year-old kid, you know.
Yeah.
And I asked, what would you do, And he's just like, well, probably let him go. And I kind of trapped him because in that, we know the end of that story, that his team got annihilated because of it, And I'm just like, kind of
but
jumping on my brother. And so
A Higher
anyways,
Call puts you in perspective about war because that book is written from people on both sides of the war. The 2 people that consult on the book to the author, he spends several years interviewing these guys, one German and one American.
And I do agree with that. But one thing that I consider in all of that is war is war. I get that.
Yes.
But you're talking about 2 different ages. You're talking about World War II, where there still was some amount of honor and chivalry. And
I think you need to finish the book. But go ahead.
yeah, but
World War II, there was honor and
principle.
chivalry.
There was principle even among enemies.
Basic human decency.
That's exactly it. Where when I think of the current age, not even the lone survivor was standing, but just the current age.
Yeah, Taliban were more of terrorists.
There's no honor among thieves
Terrorists,
anymore.
right?
Basically, yeah. There is, but there isn't. When you think about.
In war,
It's a broad statement. I know I'm making a broad statement, but I think the age that we live in now, enemies are more distinct, and while they were distinct before, there was human decency that still existed, maybe in a larger sort. Maybe not. I don't know. That's just my thought and opinion.
I think you're probably right in speaking of the majority of people. When I read about World War I, and I read I like to listen to historians that actually talk about their wartime diaries. There's a gentleman, his name's Dan Carlin, And he reads their diaries and reads the historians. He's not a historian himself, but he just reads their takes on it, on these battles and wars, and then he'll retell the story. And he talks about some of the things that happen on the front lines. And one of them is on Christmas. They don't shoot. Nobody fires a weapon. He says, in fact, on Christmas Day, they crawled out of their trenches, people from both sides, and they shared cigarettes and they played soccer on Christmas in the middle of war when they're all killing each other. This is World War I, where people are using mustard gas. And these guys on Christmas Day,
it was basically a truce. They would wave the white flag for a whole battalion or group or whatever would get together.
The diary I read, they were in their trenches, and then someone just starts singing because it's Christmas. And he says these people from wherever they were, Germany, they start singing along because they know the song. They know it in English. And pretty soon after they're done, they're singing for a while, and no shots are being fired, then they start crawling out. And they don't speak each other's language, but they just hold up a pack of cigarettes or something, and they just get closer. They play soccer for a minute, then they all get back into their trenches when the day's coming to an end, and they start shooting again.
Unbelievable.
And when you read these stories, it makes you think, man, war is really rough. Really rough. Because it's one thing to look at numbers, and you see, oh, this many people died in World War I. This many people died at this battle. And you're like, oh, that's pretty terrible. But when you read the diaries, and you read about their buddies screaming for help, and they can't go help them, and it is so gut-wrenching.
And just to think about the way they died too. So oftentimes so many more died from disease than they did from actual gunshots. But a lot of the reason why is because
infection.
they would get ran through. That's when they still used bayonets in World War I. They still, the shot would go through them, and they didn't have modern day type medicine or anything like that, or ways to get them help. And so these people would die in lots of pain. It's just war is terrible.
It is. Well, after that,
I think I need some ice cream. It's happy food.
Yeah.
So what was the original question? The original question was about have you been in situations where you're around a crime scene?
Yeah, just like what is the most what's the worst crime that you have been a part of or connected to? Either seen it happen, it happened to somebody you're close to, or like you served, or you served on a jury of some sort, or something like that.
I can't think of a crime that I've witnessed. I can't think of an accident I saw one time. I was riding with my mom and her friend Debbie. We were coming back from Costco. And then we see we're on the freeway on Interstate.
Everything happens at Costco.
We're on Interstate 5 coming home.
When you spend there 5 days a week.
We're coming home, and then we see some debris, just kind of debris in the air. We see it midair. We don't see the initial crash, but we see some debris, some chunks of something, and it's flying off to the side of the road. And we thought, well, what was that? There must have been an accident. So we pull over, and I see a motorcycle, and this Harley motorcycle was smashed to nothing. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, we got to get out of here. I'm 100% sure this guy is dead. She's like, no, we got to find him. I'm like, Mom, look at his bike. He is definitely dead. But she had to find him. So my mom we were the first ones on scene. And my mom finds him, and he's laying in some mud. So she goes to flip him over, because it looks like his head is down in the mud. And she reaches to turn him over, get his head out of the mud. And then she realizes his head's not in the mud. His head is missing. And she starts going crazy. Then this other lady's going crazy. She's trying to call 911. She can't even speak because she's so distraught. And she's walking into traffic on I-5. It's like, hey, whoa. I had to grab her, pull her out of traffic. What are you doing? I had to take her phone, talk to 911. Hey, this guy, he's been decapitated. He's missing an arm. He's missing a leg. This is what's going on. As far as I know, this is the only fatality that I see. And I explained to them, and I hung up with them. Some more people stopped. They look at the body, put their hand over their mouth. They were almost puking, walking away. And that was it. It was craziness. Then the news.
So obviously there's blood and massacre everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
it was crazy. I don't want to be too graphic, but
yeah, okay.
I'm
just saying it was a
lots
very horrific
of
scene, right?
Lots of pieces and parts on the street. And here's what's something that's interesting. It's a psychological thing that I don't fully understand. But what happened is the ladies, like 3 ladies and this middle-aged man are on scene. They came there after we did, and they said, "Where's his head?" And then my mom too, "Where's his head?" And then they all said, "Where is his head?" And they start looking for the head. I'm not making this up. They are walking up and down.
This is women, right?
No, yes, women. And then the middle-aged man, you hear him yell, "I found his helmet!" And he runs up, picks up his helmet. "It's not in here." And I'm thinking,
oh, terrible. I shouldn't be laughing. I'm sorry.
I know, but
I'm thinking, what is wrong with all you people?
Are they purposely making this funny
first
so they could cope with it
they
or
were
something?
so panicked that they were walking into the street, and I had to herd them off the street like animals. And now they're looking for the head. And I am so shocked. I'm just with my mouth agape open. I'm just, what are you guys doing? I'm standing by the vehicle. I'm like, "Mom, I am ready to go. There's nothing we can do. We got to find his head." Oh, my goodness. So anyway, we finally get home. My mom gives her phone number to the police when they arrive. And they tell us what happened. The guy got on the freeway going the wrong direction. Apparently he was suicidal. And he was dodging cars going the wrong direction. And eventually he hit a car hauler, a semi-truck hauling a bunch of cars.
He was looking for the right vehicle.
Yeah, he hit that thing towards the rear end, the trailer part, where all the metal beams and hydraulics are.
Nope, you're not big enough.
And some parts hit the car behind him, and he sideswiped another girl. The girl he sideswiped came around, she parked, and the girl that some of the parts hit, she came too. And it was just really sad. Anyway, we get home. The police call my mom. And they're talking about the part when everybody was looking for the head. And she says, "I don't know what was going on." He says, "Oh, that's normal. That's normal. When you witness something like that, it's pretty normal for people wanting to, put the pieces together." Oh, sorry, I should anyway, people want closure. He said it's perfectly normal.
Like it's a mystery and they're trying to solve the mystery or something?
Yeah, he said that's perfectly normal. Can you believe that?
That's when you go into shock. You go into shock and you start doing weird things. Like running out in the freeway trying to flag cars down.
Well, they weren't even. They were just
adrenaline.
They were on the phone.
Just kind of that adrenaline rush, and
the lady was on the phone with 911, apparently oblivious to what was going on around her, and she's wandering onto the freeway, talking on the phone, trying to tell her he doesn't have it. She couldn't get the words together, and while she's trying to get the words together, she's walking into the freeway, walking into traffic, and I thought this lady is going to die.
That's why they say a lot of people that are helping in accidents end up getting hit themselves. A lot of the time, it's because if it's horrific, when you get out there, you do kind of lose consciousness of I hate to say logic, but you don't think straight, and it's chemical. It's a chemical reaction in your body. Your body just psychs itself out basically to numb it from seeing what it's seeing. What's
weird is I tried to avoid it at all costs. When I saw his bike, I'm not making this up. I told my mom, "We gotta go. Look at his bike. There's no way we can help this guy." And I just wanted to get out of there. I thought there's nothing we can do. But as it was unfolding, I was just it doesn't make sense to me still. I don't know what that cop's talking about. "Oh, it's perfectly normal."
Yeah.
I don't think that's normal. I was on site experiencing the same thing everybody else experienced, and I wasn't looking for no head. I found his helmet. It's not in here. Like, what are you doing, buddy?
How do you think this affected you after the scene was over? You guys.
He's still a wacko, can't you tell?
Yeah, I'm a psychopath. Apparently, I just don't feel the same things other people do.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Do we learn from this kind of stuff? I mean,
I learned that
not to look for heads and helmets.
Yeah, don't look. Yeah, it was really sad. Like, I was definitely sad afterward. I was thinking about death, and I thought, man, that poor guy. Right. Why was he going the wrong way on the freeway? I thought about who he was, and I really contemplated it afterward. But the scene itself, I didn't panic.
I've seen many scenes, some horrific scenes. I've seen guys laying their brains sitting on their shirts, and I mean, I've seen you name it, stuff like that.
Yeah, it was very. Once we got on site,
decapitated one time. His Honda went under a flatbed semi's trailer, and it literally sliced the roof of his Honda back and took his head off. I mean, I've seen some pretty nasty stuff, but I totally agree with you. Like in those moments, it did not affect me like it would probably. What I would assume it would affect most everybody else that was around. But for me, my brain slows down in those kind of times, and I become very methodical, and I become very, let's do this, let's do that.
Yeah,
let's help
I
this,
try to think logically. My mind does the same thing. I slow down. I think, what can I do to make things better? What am I supposed to do? Okay,
exactly.
Okay, this lady's going into traffic. Got to stop her. Okay, she can't talk on the phone. Let me take her phone. All right, let me talk. But when they started looking for the head, I thought, okay, I'm not going to yell at these guys. This is the point where I can't help anymore. So I just stood there and did nothing.
Yeah, and there's basically, in situations like that, what I've seen, you have two different groups. You have, and I'm not going to call it panickers, but that's probably the best way to put it, like people that don't think straight in those moments. And then you have the others, a much smaller group, that do think straight in those moments. And you really are in one category or the other. It's either I'm not thinking straight. I'm reacting, or you have people who are just methodical and kind of work their way through those tragic situations.
I saw this other accident where they tugged on this guy that was completely unconscious, completely limp, and his feet were completely sideways on the pavement, which means spinal damage. Typically, I'm not a doctor, but typically, if your feet are flat on the ground sideways, then you probably
You're not
have
impersonating a doctor here, no?
You probably have some spinal damage. But they drugged this guy and leaned him up on the center divider, and he slouched over. And I'm thinking, what are these guys doing? Why are they dragging him around? And I wanted to say something, but I thought, I'm on the freeway, I can't stop. And I felt so bad for that guy.
You know, as you were talking, something finally sparked in my memory about something I was involved in.
I kind of don't want to talk about graphic stuff on
No, it's not going to be really
good.
graphic.
All right, let's transition out of this.
Okay. So, yeah.
While Raul's telling you his story, I transitioned out of it by eating Rocky Road ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, this did get pretty serious, but I mean, since we're talking about it, I just, bring it up. So, I used to, when I was 13 years old, I lived in Richmond, California. You guys remember the Lacey Peterson?
Yes.
Right in that time frame, okay, it was shortly afterwards this incident took place in my life, because I lived in Richmond, California, where they found Lacey Peterson, okay? I'm not talking about her, but, so anyways, this took right in that time frame. So, basically it was a drive-by shooting. And,
Don't try not to kink your cable there.
I lived in a mostly black community. It was pretty much all black community. And I was upstairs in a duplex and at a friend's house. The guy's name was Buki. And he
details.
Tells me, he goes, come here. He goes, and he has we're messing with the blinds.
Shout out to Buki if you're listening.
How you doing, buddy? Send me an email. Tell me if this story is overindulged or if it's true.
So Buki says, look at this red car. It's very suspicious. And so I go over there.
It's that sixth sense.
Okay. And so I open it with my fingers, the blinds, because he specifically did not want them open. And so I open it, and we're looking through there, and he passes our duplex, and then there was another
very
house.
Slowly.
And then after that house was a corner where the store was. Okay, this is a true story. Okay, and so
I believe you.
He passes our house while a Mexican man the neighbor
gentleman
was smoking a cigarette, and this time it was probably around 10, 11 o'clock at night, and the guy rolls down the window. I saw it with my own eyes. Rolls down the window, the passenger does, and just starts shooting. Well, the Mexican man, fortunately for him, he dove behind a porch, which happened to be concrete. And so he did get shot in the knee.
Oh.
So they kept going.
My.
And they went to the store, and there was a lot of people.
And they bought some milk.
Who knows what was going on at the store. And they just went wild, just started. Bullets were flying everywhere.
Wow.
So at this point in time, I'm on the ground. Buki told me jump on the ground and just cover my head, And so, long story short, we all get out there.
Once again, shout out to Buki. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Good job, Buki. You saved his life.
Thanks,
good advice.
Well, he saved my life again. Okay, because
I'm just glad when he yelled "get down." I'm just glad you didn't start dancing. Like, woo!
I'm gonna get down.
Okay, so he actually saved my life again towards this, the end of the story.
Shout out to Buki.
So thanks to Buki,
Shout out to
saves my family too, me and my family. So we go out, Kate. We're like the only, besides the dude that was smoking a cigarette, my family's the only other Mexican family on the block. And so we're out there. Police are here. The people had gone, let's just say north, okay? So
Canada.
The police show up, and somebody, you could kind of hear what people are saying. They're maybe close enough. Somebody said south. They went south.
Oh, they
I
lied.
was young. My mom told me, I told my mom everything I saw. I saw the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom my mom's basically a hillbilly with part Indian. And so you loudmouth mom, you get over there and you tell them the truth. Buki's hearing this.
Shout out to Buki.
Buki.
And he says,
don't do that, Raul.
Raul, don't you do that.
Oh.
He goes,
Buki's
your
a
life
smart
is
man.
on the line right now. He goes, you see all these black people right here? They're all tweakers. And the second you snitch on those people, he said, and this is a true story.
They'll tweak you.
He says, they're going to say, you see that little Mexican man over there? He's the one that told. He goes, and you and all your family will be taken care of. He goes,
and not in a convalescent home.
You better get your mom back in that house and get her quiet. And so he tells me that really quickly and leaves. Okay, so now the officers are pulling me aside. Okay.
And you said I don't speak English.
So what do I do at this point? I mean, let me stop and ask you, Don. What would you do in this situation? And I'll tell you afterwards what I did.
I would say, well, if I lived in that circumstance, okay, not
you're
what
the
I would
only
do right
white
now,
guy,
but
and
if I lived in that circumstance, I think I would say, officers, I don't believe I'm going to be able to help you at this point.
That's a really good answer. That was a very good answer. Very good answer. So, what about you, Johnny? Do you prefer John or Johnny?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. I probably wouldn't live there. I'd move away. Which you did. Good job. I'm glad you got it.
No, seriously. I want to know. You're the only white dude. You're the only guy that's 6'1" white dude.
I still get scared.
What would you say? I mean, the officers are waiting for you to say.
I would just tell them I can't help you. Because I would tell them I can't help them. And I would tell them why, too. I would say, the Miranda rights say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. People don't realize this, but when you speak to an officer, what you say cannot be used for you. It can only be used against you. Example, if you're in court and your defense is saying, Jonathan is innocent. I want to call Dr. such and such, police officer so-and-so, and they'll ask him a question. Yeah, I can prove he's innocent. Watch, we'll just have this doctor for testify on Jonathan's behalf. And then the prosecution will say, objection, Your Honor, that's hearsay. And the officer cannot help in my defense because it's hearsay. It can only be used against me, not for me. It will be thrown out as hearsay.
Yep, you're exactly right. And that's an interesting point. That's
why they say never talk to the police. When the police counseling a defendant, they say never talk to the police. It literally cannot help. By law, it cannot help you.
Now, if we're talking about today and where I'm at in this situation, where I live now, all of that, obviously I'd be as helpful as I could. Right. I'd say, hey, they went this way or they went that way. But when you live in certain communities,
if you're in a neighborhood like that,
yes, when you live in certain communities and certain situations, it will do you no good to be helpful, because by being helpful, you will be harmed.
You're betraying your neighbors.
That's exactly
the people that live right next door to you. If they think you're betraying them,
that's how I looked at it.
Shout out to Buki.
Yeah, thank you, Buki.
Thanks, Buki, because I was looking out for my family too. It wasn't just me. It was. He told me that my family was at stake.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. Well, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I've enjoyed every part of it, including the Rocky Road ice cream. Because, life is a rocky road. And so I wanted to ingest that into my own heart, life, and soul. So I had 3 scoops of Rocky Road ice cream. But
I watched you.
It was just phenomenal. And thank you, Rite Aid. Shout out to Rite Aid. But anyways,